Hi, this is Rick, and welcome to Digital Fortress. In today's video, I'm going to go over some guidelines that were recently put out by the SEC in reference to ICOs, or initial coin offerings. This video is not financial advice, and I do not give financial advice. It is merely, I'm going to go over the list and provide some opinion and commentary on the list. I'm also going to link it down below so you can go back and review it yourself. And I would suggest any professionals that are doing ICOs in the future to look back to this document and other guidance from the SEC on how to properly execute, for example, in the United States. I think it would be very important to make sure you're looking at SEC guidance. And that's why I'm doing a video on this particular document. So let me jump over to the document, give you a description and some commentary here. Here's the document. It's at sec.gov/ICO. So it is, coming from SEC, which is kind of cool, I thought. The document has two main sections here. You have what investors need to know and some points. There's some points above it, but what investors need to know. And I have my browser zoomed in here. And the second section is what market professionals need to know. So the what market professionals need to know leans more towards the developers and the entrepreneurs. And the what investors need to know leans a little bit more towards people like myself who purchase tokens and coins and trade and stuff like that. Okay, so back up to the top. Let's go through the first section here. This first paragraph, 2 sentences, very interesting. It states, companies and individuals are increasingly considering initial coin offerings, ICOs, as a way to raise capital or participate in investment opportunities. While these digital assets and the technology behind them may present a new and efficient means for carrying out financial transactions, they also bring increased risk of fraud and manipulation because the markets for these assets are less regulated than traditional capital markets. That is an extremely well-framed first 2 sentences introduction from the SEC, because the digital currencies do not know borders, and this SEC is USA based, where I'm located, and I think the SEC is starting to recognize the power of these digital currencies and that they don't know any borders, but they're making it very clear here. Yes, this is a good technology, but they also bring increased risk of fraud, and it's pretty well known to people who are in cryptocurrencies, but it needs to be better known to people who are new to cryptocurrencies, right? So on to the bullet points. The first bullet point here, ICOs can be securities offerings. ICOs are based on specific facts, maybe security offerings, and fall under the SEC's jurisdiction of enforcing federal security laws. So there are a lot of things under ICOs that can apply to SEC. They may need to be registered. Now notice the words they're using here. They're using words like may, and you'll see that throughout this document, meaning it's possible, it's optional, or not optional, but there could be a requirement. So unless it says shall or should or must, that is like typically something that is enforceable or required. So there's some loose wording in here. Second here, tokens sold in ICOs can be called many things. Yeah, they can be called tokens, utilities, like it says here. So the SEC goes on to say ICOs, or more specifically tokens, can be called a variety of names, but merely calling a token utility token or structuring it to provide some utility does not prevent the token from being a security. So very clear guidance. And these apply, so this first section I'm reading, these first 5 bullets, they apply across the board to both investors and developers and entrepreneurs. Okay, so the fourth one down, ICOs may pose substantial risks. That's very important. While some ICOs may be attempts at honest investment opportunities, many may be frauds separating you from your hard-earned money with promises of guaranteed returns and future fortunes. They may also present substantial risks for loss or manipulation, including through hacking, with little recourse for victims after the fact. And I'd like to point out at this point that there were many ICOs on Ethereum that just weren't well thought out. Maybe the developers had good intentions, but things fall apart and people lose a lot of money that they invested. So Even if a developer seems on the up and up, they might not be either good at business or whatever goes wrong and you still lose money. So something to be aware of. The threat is out there and the threat is real. You also have a lot of ICOs on Ethereum where it really just turned into a way. They had these utilities, kind of mentioned in the bullet above, utility tokens that serve some sort of purpose. But what some of these utilities had turned into was simply a way to get Ethereum from you. Like you purchase Ethereum with fiat, then the utility, ICOs, and they say, oh, buy into our ICO with Ethereum. And then they get your Ethereum and you get this token and the value falls apart. And a lot of you old timers, you know the story out there. But for those of you that are new to crypto, be cautious with these ICOs. You can lose a lot of money in them. You can make a lot of money. It's a gamble, all right? Again, not financial advice. This is a warning. It's not financial advice. The next bullet, for the general purpose, ask questions before investing. Totally makes sense. Okay, if you choose to invest in these products, please ask questions and demand clear answers. And demand those answers on like the Telegram channels. There's a lot of different communication mediums, Twitter. Find out who these developers are and just dig and ask questions. You're the only one who could decide how you want to spend your money. No one else can really do it well for you except maybe a professional advisor. Another thing I'd like to point out is transparency with these ICOs. There were a lot of ICOs on Ethereum. Now with Cardano coming up over the next year as smart contracts are deployed, all of the things that went wrong on Ethereum can go wrong on Cardano, i.e. ICOs that had good intentions but fell apart or are going through a lot of turmoil right now. The exact same thing could happen on Cardano. ICOs that were done with maybe purely the intention of being a scam. It's almost impossible to tell. That will happen on Cardano. There's a lot of times you'll see scammers out there saying, oh, giving away free ETH. Same thing could happen with Cardano. What other things are out there? For example, right now there's a Cardano Classic scam. I'm just going to call it a scam. We don't know anything about those people. There's not a whole lot of data. But transparency is very important, and getting your questions answered is very important. Just keep something in mind about transparency. Transparency isn't a goal, it is a means. The goal or the end is trust. If you want to have trust in an ICO, transparency is simply one of the many factors that helps build trust, at least for me, in an ICO. So transparency is not the end game. Transparency is a method of acquiring trust. So it's important to understand what and why transparency is out there. So if there's an ICO where they are transparent and they're putting information out, personally, I have a little bit more trust in them, but still very skeptical. And again, we go back to reading the document here from the SEC. I'm just adding my own opinion on what the SEC has to say here and a little bit of experience based on previous exposure. So the next section is for investors. What investors need to know. What do you need to know about ICOs before investing? Start with some basic research on investor.gov, and there's a link there too. So I'll put that link in the description down below as well. And take note of the following. Products can be sold and traded internationally. Recognize that these products are often sold on markets that span national borders, and that significant trading may occur on systems and platforms outside the United States. For example, Cardano ICO'd primarily in Japan, but it was open very broadly to several different nations. Your invested funds may quickly travel overseas without your knowledge. Although the SEC actively enforces security laws, risks can be amplified, including the risk that market regulators may not be able to effectively pursue bad actors or recover funds. Now, when they talk about funds here, they're talking about you take your fiat, your native currency, and you trade it for a cryptocurrency. All right? But cryptocurrencies know no borders. They live on the internet, so they're global. Like the moment you own one, it's globally on the blockchain. So here, I believe they are referring, the SEC is referring to when you purchase an ICO with your fiat, okay? Next bullet for investors, research your financial professional. And it's saying, understand the opportunity that is being presented and do your homework on the individual who is doing the presenting. Is the offering legal, and is the person offering this product licensed to do so? Make sure you visit investor.gov for more resources before you invest. Arm yourself with knowledge from this investor bulletin, and another link there. Do your own research. Well, going on Telegram and asking questions is part of the research process. Okay, so you can find more data there. Again, don't treat them as financial advisors. They're probably not. Okay, they're like me. So if an investment sounds too good to be true, be cautious. Some people call this common sense, but as we all know, common sense isn't always that common. And I need advice like this all the time. I need refreshers. Reading this article is good for me. It reminds me of stuff that I should be doing and things that I used to know but got out of practice. So investment sounds too good to be true, be cautious. As with any other type of potential investment, if a promoter guarantees returns, if an opportunity sounds too good to be true, or if you're pressured to act quickly, please exercise extreme caution and be aware of the risk that your investment may be lost. And this is especially true with crypto because greed makes people do weird things. I used to think, oh, I'm not greedy, but then I realized, no, the whole game I'm playing in crypto is a greed function, and it triggers what people call FOMO, the fear of missing out. And between the greed and the FOMO, that can cause malfunction up here in respect to this bullet. If something looks too good to be true, be cautious, because greed and FOMO kick in and you say, oh, I can get me a piece of that. And all of a sudden you make bad decisions, and it's sometimes potentially disastrous. All right, so next bullet. Understand how the product is traded. Many platforms for trading digital assets refer to themselves as exchanges, which can give the impression to investors that they are regulated or meet the regulatory standards of a national securities exchange. Some of these exchanges that you read about, I'm not going to call any one of them out by name. Some of them are based reliably in countries that allow these exchanges to operate well. Some exchanges, you have to be careful because they're based in countries where the government might come in and say, all of these coins are mine. Just an example. All right, based on experience and exposure. So next we want to go on to what market professionals need to know. As SEC Chairman Jay Clayton has stated, tokens and offerings that feature and market the potential for profits based on the entrepreneurial or managerial efforts of others contain the hallmarks of a security under U.S. law. So there's a very clear description. Let me go over that again. Tokens and offerings that feature and market the potential for profits based on entrepreneurial and managerial efforts of others contain hallmarks of a security under U.S. law. Very clearly stated what is a security. So if you're going to do an ICO on Cardano, please do your research and check with the SEC data. They're being very open with this. All right, so first bullet, use caution before promoting offers and selling coins. Market participants should use caution when promoting or touting the offer and sale of coins without first determining whether the security laws apply to those actions. That's what I was saying earlier. I should have just read this bullet. Similarly, those who operate systems and platforms that effect or facilitate transactions in these products should be aware that they may be operating unregistered exchanges or broker-dealers that are in violation of the SEC Act of 1934. And you would hope that market professionals know all this kind of stuff, but the funny thing is they're operating in many different countries, and in some cases, U.S. law doesn't apply to them, so they can do whatever they want. The next point, the SEC protects investors and expects you to. So there's an expectation from the SECs for developers and marketers and entrepreneurs out there to protect the buyers. Not always the case. Key points here, gatekeepers and others, including securities lawyers, accountants, and consultants should be guided by the principal motivation for the SEC's registration, offering process, and disclosure requirements, investor protection, and in particular, the protection of Main Street investors. So here the SEC is saying, okay, those of you who want to operate in the U.S. markets, you need to take care of the people. You need to be looking out for your investors' interests, because not everyone is. Next, second to last bullet, SEC report of investigation on coin or token offerings. Market professionals, including securities lawyers, accountants, and consultants, are encouraged to read closely the 21A investigative report the SEC released in 2017, concluding that a particular token was a security. So there's a really good example, and I will put that link down below as well. Lastly here, no one exchange needs to be registered. If a platform offers trading of digital assets that are securities and operates as an exchange as defined by the federal securities laws, then the platform must register with the SEC as a national securities exchange or be exempt from registration. All right. Well, there's the document from the SEC with a little bit of my opinion and take on what they're saying there. I think this is a good indication that the SEC is putting out guidance. And what I mean by good indication is that the SEC is warming up to the idea that digital currencies are a valuable asset, that people have a lot of interest in them, and that you can't just regulate things away. That just doesn't work. And so maybe we'll see a little bit more positive indications coming out from the SEC over the next couple of years. We'll see. Hey, thank you all for watching Digital Fortress, and thank you to all the subscribers out there. I really appreciate you subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so. If you would like to see more videos, hit the bell button, and that will give you notifications, and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.